Okay, so I gotta say, the idea of a whole city, like, swallowed by the sea, I mean, a whole civilization just gone. It's like kind of spooky, right? But also kind of cool.
Yeah, it definitely grabs you.
Yeah. And that's Atlantis, right? Like,
Right.
was it real? Was it this amazing, powerful place that just disappeared? Or was it something, I don't know, even weirder? Or is it all just a story? A really good one, but still.
Well, that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Right. We're diving deep into Atlantis, so what do we have to work with here? What's our starting point?
Well, we got some excerpts from this.
Yeah.
It's called The Lost City of Atlantis.pdf.
Okay. Sounds legit.
Yeah, it lays out a lot of
So
the history, the myths, the theories.
cool. So where do we even begin with something like this? Atlantis. It's like almost too big to think about, you know?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the origin of the story itself, and for that, we got to go all the way back to Plato.
Oh yeah, Plato, ancient Greek philosopher dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Around 360 BCE, Plato wrote about Atlantis in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias.
Dialogues.
Right.
Like conversations.
Yeah, pretty much like these written philosophical discussions. And what's amazing is the level of detail he goes into about Atlantis.
So like he wasn't just like, oh yeah, there's this place called Atlantis and it was cool.
No. He actually gives us a pretty vivid picture. He places it beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar.
Okay, got it. So like out in the Atlantic somewhere.
Right. And the size he describes,
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing. He says it was bigger than Libya and Asia Minor combined.
Whoa. Hold on. Bigger than. Like that's a huge chunk of land.
Yeah, we're not talking about just some tiny island here. Plato describes Atlantis as a massive, powerful empire.
Okay, so big empire out in the Atlantic. But it wasn't just big, right? It was like advanced too.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Plato talks about concentric rings of water and land, incredibly sophisticated harbors.
Sounds kind of futuristic almost. Not like what you think of when you hear ancient civilization.
Right. And that's what makes it so intriguing. He describes a society that mastered engineering, architecture, culture. Like, they were at the top of their game. But here's where things take a dark turn.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Well, according to Plato, the Atlanteans became greedy, corrupt. They kind of lost their way.
Oh no. Classic downfall, huh?
It really is, isn't it? And the way Plato tells it, their hubris was punished. Big time.
So what happened? How did Atlantis disappear?
Earthquakes, massive floods, like the whole island was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. Divine retribution, according to Plato.
Wow. Talk about going out with a bang. Literally.
Right. And to make things even crazier, he puts this all happening around 9,600 BCE.
Yeah.
That's over 9,000 years before he was even writing.
Okay, so we've got this super detailed story, a lost civilization, advanced technology, a dramatic ending. But there's a catch, right?
Well, yeah. Historians tend to take Plato's story with a grain of salt.
A big grain, maybe.
Maybe. Because let's be honest, there's no archaeological evidence to support any of it, at least not from that time period.
Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, if it was that big, that advanced, wouldn't we have found something by now?
You'd think so, right? And that's why a lot of historians think that Atlantis, as Plato described it, might not have been a real place.
So, like, what, he just made it all up?
Well, not necessarily made up. More like maybe it was a parable, a story with a deeper meaning.
Like a warning.
Exactly. A warning about the dangers of greed and hubris. How even the most powerful civilizations can fall if they lose their way.
Makes you think, right? I mean, we still struggle with those same things today.
That's the thing about these ancient stories. They often have timeless lessons. But it still leaves us with that question. Was Plato drawing on some real historical event, maybe exaggerating it for dramatic effect, or was it purely a philosophical tale?
Okay, so big mystery, no easy answers. But people haven't just given up, right? People have been searching for Atlantis for centuries.
Oh, yeah. The mystery is irresistible. And there have been a lot of interesting theories about where it might have been, some more plausible than others.
All right, so spill the beans. What are some of these theories?
Well, one of the most popular ones connects Atlantis to the island of Santorini in Greece.
Santorini. I've heard of that. It's beautiful, right? Like white houses, blue roofs.
Yeah, it's a popular tourist destination now. But its history is pretty dramatic. Around 1600 BCE, Santorini was the site of a massive volcanic eruption.
Volcano. Okay, so things are getting interesting.
Oh, yeah. This eruption was one of the largest in recorded history. It devastated the Minoan civilization, which was thriving on Santorini at the time.
So, like, buried cities, ash, the whole 9 yards.
Pretty much. And tsunamis, too. Huge waves that would reshape the entire coastline.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. Powerful island civilization.
Nice.
Sudden disaster.
And the Minoans were advanced for their time, too. They had sophisticated art, architecture, trade networks. Kind of lines up with Plato's description of Atlantis in some ways.
Intriguing. But wasn't there, like, a huge problem with the dates?
Ah, yeah, the timeline. That's the main issue with the Santorini theory. Plato put Atlantis' destruction at 9,600 BCE, while the Santorini eruption was around 1,600 BCE. That's a difference of, like, 8,000 years.
Yeah, that's not just a small oopsie. That's a massive gap.
It is. But proponents of this theory suggest that maybe, over thousands of years, the story of a real event, the destruction of the Minoans, could have been distorted, embellished, the dates shifting, until it morphed into the legend of Atlantis that Plato wrote down.
So, like, a really, really long game of telephone.
Something like that. It highlights how stories can change over time, especially when passed down orally. Details get lost, others are added. It's certainly an interesting possibility.
Okay, I can kind of see that. But then we get to, well, some even wilder theories. Our notes mention the Bimini Road. What is that all about?
Ah, the Bimini Road. This one always sparks a lot of debate. It's an underwater formation off the coast of the Bahamas, discovered in 1968. Basically, it's a long stretch of large rectangular stones arranged in a kind of road-like pattern.
Underwater, so people think it's like a road to Atlantis.
Some do. They believe it's a man-made structure, a remnant of this lost city, maybe a harbor wall or part of some sunken building.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's near the Bermuda Triangle, well, that adds to the mystique.
The Bermuda Triangle. Okay, now we're getting into some real X-Files territory.
Right. It definitely fuels the imagination. And some divers who explore the Bimini Road say the stones seem too perfectly aligned to be natural.
So they think it had to have been built by someone, right? But hold on, what about the dates? I thought carbon dating put those stones at a much later date than Plato's Atlantis.
You're right. Carbon dating suggests the Bimini Road is somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 years old. Still ancient, but way too recent to fit Plato's timeline.
Right, so even if it is man-made, it's probably not Atlantis.
Most likely not. But then geologists have another explanation. They say it's a natural formation, that these stones are actually beach rock, which is basically a hardened ancient beach that's been eroded and fractured over time.
So nature mimicking man-made structures.
Exactly. And it happens more often than you might think. There are places around the world where natural geological formations look eerily like walls, roads, even buildings. It can be hard to tell the difference sometimes.
Okay, so the Bimini Road. Probably not Atlantis, but still pretty cool. And then things get even more, how do I put this out there?
Oh, yeah. Now we're venturing into the realm of speculation.
Speculation is right. We're talking about like super advanced technology and, well, aliens.
All right, so let's address the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the alien in the spaceship.
Huh. Nice one. But seriously, some people think Atlantis was like a super high-tech civilization.
Yeah. The idea is that they had technology way ahead of their time. Things like electricity, flying machines, maybe even control over gravity.
Whoa, hold up. Flying machines in ancient times, that's a bit much, isn't it?
It definitely stretches the bounds of believability. But some people tie this into the whole alien theory. The idea is that Atlantis was actually a base for extraterrestrials.
An alien base, and they, like, hid it underwater.
Right. To keep it a secret from the rest of humanity. And people point to things like UFO sightings near the Bermuda Triangle, strange underwater lights, as potential evidence.
Okay, now this is sounding like a sci-fi movie plot. I mean, come on, aliens.
I know, it sounds far-fetched, right? And to be fair, there's absolutely zero solid evidence to back any of this up. No alien artifacts, no spaceships, nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there were aliens chilling in Atlantis, wouldn't we have found something by now?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But the lack of evidence doesn't stop people from speculating. And honestly, it's kind of fun to think about, right? What if? What if some of the unexplained things we see today actually have their roots in some long-lost, super advanced civilization? Or, aliens.
Okay, I'll admit, it's a fun thought experiment. But let's get back to something a bit more grounded. So besides Santorini and the Bimini Road, what other places have people suggested for Atlantis?
Oh, there's a whole laundry list.
Yeah.
And they're all over the map, literally.
Really? Like where?
Well, there's Antarctica. Some people think Atlantis might be buried under the ice there.
Antarctica.
That has a cup.
That's cold. And, like, really inconvenient to excavate.
Yeah, a bit challenging. Then there are the Azores Islands. They're out in the Atlantic, pretty close to where Plato placed Atlantis originally.
Okay, that makes a little more sense, geographically speaking. Any others?
Oh, yeah. Even the Sahara Desert. Believe it or not, it used to be a much more fertile area thousands of years ago.
Huh. So maybe Atlantis was a desert oasis that dried up.
That's one theory. And the proponents of each of these locations have their own, let's say, interpretations of evidence. Some point to satellite images, claiming to see outlines of sunken cities. Others use old maps that supposedly show landmasses that no longer exist.
So lots of theories, lots of speculation.
But still no smoking gun, right?
That's the thing about Atlantis. We have a ton of intriguing clues, but nothing that definitively proves its existence. No grand ruins, no inscriptions. Nothing that shouts, Atlantis was here.
Man, that's got to be frustrating for the people who are really, really invested in finding it. It must be. But I think it also speaks to the power of the myth itself. The fact that it continues to inspire so much wonder, so much searching. It's fascinating.
It really is. I mean, think about it. This story has been around for over 2,000 years.
That's right. It's been retold, reimagined, explored in countless books, movies, TV shows. It's clearly struck a chord with us.
Okay, so even if Atlantis wasn't a real place, it's become this, symbol,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It represents all the unknowns of history,
Mm-hmm.
the lost civilizations, the mysteries we haven't solved yet. It's a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about our past.
And maybe a little bit of hope, too, like the hope that there's still something amazing out there waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. Atlantis embodies that sense of wonder,
Yeah.
of possibility. Even if it's just a story, it speaks to something deep within us, a yearning for something lost, something greater than ourselves.
So, okay, let's wrap this up. We've gone through a lot. The story, the theories, the evidence, or lack thereof.
Right. We've looked at Plato's account, the Santorini connection, the Bimini Road, the wild stuff about aliens. We've covered a lot of ground.
And still, the big question remains, was Atlantis real? Or just a myth?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have a definitive answer for you today. Maybe someday someone will uncover irrefutable proof. Or maybe the mystery will persist, and that's okay too.
I think you're right. Sometimes the mystery is part of the fun. It keeps us exploring, keeps us wondering.
Exactly. And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Why has this story, this idea of Atlantis, lasted for so long? What is it about it that continues to resonate with us across cultures and time?
That's a good question. One we might never have a clear answer to, but it's definitely something to ponder. And hey, who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the one to finally solve the mystery of Atlantis.
Wouldn't that be something?
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an eye out for those underwater cities. You never know what you might find.
And maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of Atlantis inside all of us. That sense of wonder, that drive to explore the unknown. Who knows?
I like that. A little bit of Atlantis in all of us. All right, folks, that's our deep dive into the legend of Atlantis. Until next time.
Safe travels.